So, the incandescent light bulb is a common trope for the process of innovation. Its invention changed the world, turned night into day, like white nights, right? It became the ultimate example of the innovation process. Light bulbs were dim and fragile for more than 75 years until Thomas Edison persevered throughout over 3,000 different bulb ideas and 6,000 different filament designs. He created a light bulb so efficient that nothing else in the market could compete with it. His invention was not only disruptive to the existing market for electric lights, it also made them more affordable and widespread. Soon every home contained many Edison-style bulbs. And his laboratory at Menlo Park was actually the first institution set up with a specific goal of producing constant technological innovation and improvement. Today I'm going to touch on some of the highlights of innovation in our industry. If you're still trying to decide whether to escape from this room, here's an overview of what I'm going to talk about. What is innovation? A definition of innovation and its uses, some obstacles that can prevent innovation, positive effects of innovation, and corporate culture and support required for innovation. Also, how and why to create an innovation framework at your company, and what a chief innovation officer can do for you. Periodically, I'm going to interrupt myself to give you a quote from someone who actually knows what they're talking about. In this case, Steve Jobs. He has a lot of interesting things to say about innovation and is a great example of success in this space. So why should you listen to me? Because you should listen to everyone, actually, and then make your own decisions. So not to waste too much time, just a little bit about me. I've been in the game industry for a while, mostly at wargaming. I have a diploma that says I didn't sleep through too many classes, and I've spent some time trying to innovate my way out of getting killed. I've also worked on a bunch of mostly military-themed video games. So, all kinds of people are looking for a path to innovation. Tech companies, universities, consulting companies, charities, researchers, cities, pharmaceutical companies, health insurance firms, even countries and continents, food networks, and sometimes even game studios are looking for ways to foster and encourage innovation and growth. But organizations typically do not have a culture that supports constant innovation once they get past the size where everyone knows everyone else by their first name. Once you get HR and legal and administration and more money than you know what to do with, companies start hedging their bets. They're closing their minds. They recycle old franchises and use things that have already made a profit, recycling ideas. They duplicate physical sports games in the digital space, or they port old arcade games to mobile. They sometimes even ride a single successful game for many years until it crashes and burns, and then they don't build something new to replace it. They need a new disruptive game. And this lack of innovation can be the downfall of an otherwise successful company. It's something that we're trying to avoid at Wargaming. So what exactly is innovation? There's plenty of words that are similar in meaning to innovation. I'm not going to read this entire list, mostly to save the translators a big headache. But innovate literally comes from the Latin meaning to renew or change something. In business terms, innovation gives you an advantage. It's valuable for sustaining an advantage that you already have, engaging a new audience, combining successful elements from other products in new ways, and creating something so new that it changes the landscape of the market itself. Innovation that leads to true disruption may not last long before it gets diluted by copycats, but you can expect a really crazy wild ride when it does. So what is this disruption? Examples of disruption in our own industry can be easily found in technology, in the platforms when they're first introduced. For example, the home PC, or the console, or handheld games, or even smartphones. Oops. These changes have been happening so fast over the last 40 years that gamers are used to a high rate of technological improvement. This often drives new hardware purchases and also drives us developers crazy trying to adapt to the new technologies as quickly as they come out. Disruption is also found in the games themselves. For example, the amazing successes of super popular games that can generate billions of dollars in revenue, the kinds of games we all want to make, like World of Warcraft, League of Legends, Candy Crush Saga, PUBG, Minecraft, Clash of Clans, Fortnite, Overwatch, Pokemon Go, and even World of Tanks. As platform changes have become less revolutionary and more evolutionary, and ridiculous numbers of games flood the App Store and Steam and Google Play, it gets harder for even the most innovative and interesting games to find players. Or, more accurately, it becomes more difficult for players to find the interesting games. Being in the right place at the right time with the right product, a factor that is commonly known as luck, still has a lot to do with disruption and success. Notch had no idea that Minecraft would become a legendary game in almost every household in the world. Candy Crush Saga seemed like just another match 3 game when it came out. And 100 players fighting on an island over a bucket of fried chicken on an island that's being used as a bombing range, even player unknown could not have predicted that it would be such a successful product. However, you will encounter roadblocks to innovation. Many of them will come from within your own company. Here are some of the most common issues you may run into. Not having a strategy. Without a clear path toward your goal, you can't be successful. Often too much freedom is worse than having some restrictions. Restrictions actually help the creative juices flow to overcome those problems. Have an idea of where you're going, even though it means not going everywhere. It's much better than not going anywhere. Whether you don't have enough people or enough money, resources can also be a problem. Scale your strategy and your goals to meet what you can do. Instead of crying about what you can't do or creating new projects that are outside the scope of your team's experience and capabilities. Too much bureaucracy. This might be lack of executive support or siloed departments that keep secrets and compete for resources. Challenge the status quo and find allies to help you build bridges instead of burning them. And be persistent. Don't give up. Sometimes you just run out of ideas. I know, hard to believe, especially for us who are game designers, right? You can run out of ideas. Take a break, do something different, come back when you're refreshed, take a different look at the problem. If you don't have a culture of mutual trust inside your company, you have a much larger problem than innovation. You really have to trust each other. Your company can't survive if you have a lack of trust. This can undermine everything that you're working toward. Nobody likes to risk being creative and coming up with innovative ideas in an environment where there's no trust. Special treatment. When you have individuals that the company can't live without, they're too good, you have a problem that's also similar to the lack of trust. Nobody can be irreplaceable. Morale will sink like a stone when these people leave, they fail, or they give up. Frequently, these people also get promoted way beyond their ability to actually lead teams just because of their previous contributions, and sometimes they cause more problems than they originally solved. To help avoid roadblocks, make a vision plan. This will be used by your company both as a strategic tool and as a path forward for innovation. So, core business makes sense. You can't make video games if you're a shampoo company. Stick to what you know and what you're already good at. Develop a portfolio as part of a long-term strategy for creative management. Restrictions are good for creativity, as I said. Stick to platforms or genres that you know well and look for things that you can do in that space. Be quick, be fast, be agile in your development. Teams of 2 to 3 people iterating quickly, cheaply, they're much more likely to be successful than if you're approving expensive projects just based on, let's say, a pitch, a concept. You're giving up too much money and too much control and taking too much risk. Fail small, fail cheap, fail fast. You learn a lot more from your failures than you do from your successes. So understand the output of your innovation and where it fits in the market. So also understand the impact of industry events on your players and on your competitors. So new games that are disruptive cause waves throughout the industry. It's up to you whether you're going to ride that wave, drown because of that wave, or you're going to ignore that wave and make new waves of your own. Don't let people handpick their friends for cushy jobs. Make sure your experts truly have expertise. Make sure they have experience in the genre, the market, design and prototyping methodologies. If they're going to make new innovations for your company, they really need to know what they're doing. And finally, getting everyone on board means nurturing these new ideas, communicating clearly to those who are interested about how they can help those ideas grow. The human element is the most important factor for coming up with any new ideas, of course. You can use data, you can use research, market surveys, play tests, and all of those things once you have something to show, something to test. Until then, ideas are only between people. They have to be thought about, they have to be argued about, they have to be criticized. You have to get a large group inside the company to agree that the idea should be carried forward as a project, but also to make sure that they understand the same shared vision. If they have different ideas of what the game is about, then you'll get a lot of people who want to back out later, or you'll lose support. It's critical to be clear in your communication. So, where do great ideas come from that create innovation inside your company, right? It depends on what kind of innovation you want. There's different purposes for innovation. Whether you want to be getting new ideas from your employees or even your clients or customers. You can use a traditional R&D group model. It's closed, it's kind of competitive within the company. Or you can actually take more risk and open up your idea-making process to everyone inside your company. So first, you should know what kind of ideas you're looking for. It helps a lot to be able to define the problem you want to solve, the domain you're working in, and how you want to approach the situation. So for example, the basic research in the bottom left, this is the kind of thing that just universities do. It's just repetitive research. Sustainment, like in the top right, that's actually for conventional industries that are slow growth and tend to be dominated by industry processes like manufacturing, car manufacturing, for example. So disruptions and breakthroughs happen on the fringes, in the corners, the top left and the bottom right. So it's where places where the industry is clearly understood, but that it has stagnated. And there are problems that everyone recognizes. Breakthroughs are the results of individuals like Bill Gates, Steve Jobs, Elon Musk, or they're the result of the innovation process in an entire company. Disruption can be caused by small and agile teams of experts iterating frequently on new ideas, or you can use something like the spare time model. Google uses it, FedEx uses it. This allows employees to spend 10 to 20% of their time at work on projects for the company, but that they're their own ideas. And they can also bring in other people inside the company to help them with that. This provides a catalyst for innovation within the company. Your ideal team of innovators inside the company depends a lot on who you invite and how much you direct their work, whether it's wide open or if you're going to give them some constraints. You might choose to invite only a few innovators to create new ideas. This is the traditional R&D lab approach. This risks having too few ideas and too narrow a focus. You might also open up the process to everyone you know inside the company, with the resulting overhead of teaching the process, sorting ideas, dealing with people who feel like their pride has been injured, for example. You may choose, again, like Google in the previous example, not to direct people at all. Or you might give them a challenge to help them focus and to kick off conversations internally. Again, this depends mainly on what your goals are for your innovation process. My preference is for innovation frameworks that lie in the upper right part of this chart. They include both focus on the problem and the widest possible dissemination of ideas, a number of people working on solutions for the problem. Systems in the lower right tend to generate a lot of static, a lot of extra ideas that aren't really relevant, while those on the left create the kinds of R&D silos that become competitive and more about ownership of ideas and vision, who holds the vision rather than the vision of the innovation itself. So Dell is among many successful companies that have implemented innovation frameworks inside their company. These have resulted in huge gains. Most of these companies doing this are not, unfortunately, in the game space. The game industry, we pride ourselves on innovation, but we don't really use process well to create it. It's more of an art form. This is something I would kind of like to see change so that we can actually approach it in a more successful way and not have so many failures. There's a lot of startups that fail, and there's a lot of big businesses that fail too, because they don't innovate in a process-oriented way, and they don't open up innovation inside their company. They don't deal with the roadblocks that they would have to success. So an innovation framework, I mean, this is kind of an official definition, but what it really is just a way to get new ideas from everyone in the company, figure out which ones are great, and then turn them into great products. So this is Microsoft's innovation framework pipeline. It's an excellent example of how to cast a wide net for new ideas while focusing development resources only on those ideas that have actual merit. The program strategy includes leadership, guidance, and executive support. It also is open to everyone. Ideas are collected, they're evaluated. The best ones are determined either by teams that are experts or by collective voting in a social media space like kind of a Facebook at work type group. So this innovation leadership then challenges the outcomes and evaluates, and approved products are put into development. In a process like this, it's essential that no more than 20% of products make it through from the concept phase into proposed development, and then from there, no more than 20% of those make it from like a demo or prototype into actual full development. This way, you don't lose. You don't wind up working on too many things at once and lack the resources or lose your focus. So again, I highly recommend reading Microsoft's Innovation Framework document. It's free on the internet, and you can find it pretty much anywhere. It has a lot of great ideas for innovation workflow. So Motorola, which I, for one, have not previously thought of as an innovation company, they have an innovation framework that has really simple but very effective supporting framework. They focus on people, process, data, communication, valuing contributions, and providing a path to get internal funding for new ideas. The last two things are really often left out of innovation frameworks because the focus becomes too much of a focus on process and not enough on the people. And people are happy even when their idea isn't approved, as long as you recognize their contributions and that they can see that projects are being evaluated fairly and that people are being rewarded. So if you have no clear way to get projects funded, the innovation process can feel like a sham intended only to raise morale. Everyone feels better when they see that it's possible for even someone else to have a great idea and to be rewarded with an outcome of success. Bettina von Stam, she's a well-known innovation expert. She created these corporate requirements for supporting an innovation framework in any company. Some key highlights of this are the need to be oriented to the future and to customers, for leadership to encourage new ideas and accept failures, for processes to guide collaboration and support innovation, and for the corporate culture not to be competitive internally. Also, you have to have an environment that attracts and retains top talent. You can also find a lot of her work online. Definitely recommend looking her up too. So in this age of rapid technological change, especially in the industry, in games, if you're not staying ahead of the curve, you're falling behind quickly. Innovators are leaders, not followers. Steve Jobs came up with many ways to find a path forward, even though he had to face stiff competition from a dominant leader in the industry, Microsoft. And he was persistent. He failed a lot, but he still managed to find a path forward. And this is something that we all have to face. You may decide that you want a chief innovation officer to lead your company's innovation process. So this person does not have to be a good innovator themselves. They should know the industry very well, but their main focus is not to come up with new ideas. Their job is to organize a path that ideas will take from people inside the company, or sometimes outside the company, through several levels of evaluation until they get to the point where they enter the development pipeline and become regular projects for full-scale development. So this person should have the support of your leadership team. They should also focus innovation practices on the company's needs and the strategy of the company. They should also reach out to as many employees as possible, find innovators on every team, and bring them to a larger company-wide web that will support the growth of new ideas. They should coordinate with business intelligence and research groups inside the company. They can come up with seeds, like if you know where there's, for example, a blue ocean or a market niche that's not yet filled, they could say, hey, we've noticed this. How do we fill this? What product, what game can we make that's going to fill this niche? They also need to be responsible for gathering these ideas, building teams, and fostering the culture of support for innovation, and coordinating the funding of innovation tools, prototypes, and projects until they reach a stage where they go into development. Okay, we're almost done. I've only been able to hit the highlights of innovation processes. This is really intended only to give you some ideas of where to go. There's tons more information available, and I'll give you some recommendations, but please go out and learn more about innovation on your own, because every company, every studio is going to do it differently. So to sum up, I cannot overstate the importance of innovation to disruption and progress. This is how breakthroughs happen. All of those games I mentioned earlier that make billions of dollars, they did something special. They were disruptive. Make sure your leadership and your company's culture are ready to support a path to innovation. Understand that there will be obstacles, and they need to realize that. You have to build your own framework. Not necessarily steal someone else's, but see what everyone else is doing, and then build your own out of that based on your own company's values, methods, and strategy. You have to show employees that this is not just a measure to make them feel good. Use social tools and provide visible feedback inside the company with meaningful rewards, whether they're prizes, cash, or the opportunity to lead their own team. If you're a large company, you might want to hire someone whose only job is to make sure innovation happens, like a chief information officer. And as I said, there's a lot more to it than this. So I'll give you a list of resources right now. And I highly recommend that you go out and read some of these books and find some of the innovation resources that are online. And if you have any questions, feel free to contact me. It's a pretty simple email. And that's all I have, and I'll take your questions now. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Chris.